It has only been 1 month of 2023 so far, yet we have already had a lot of super great games, and the rest of the year seems to be very promising. The way things are going, I legit don't think we've had a year this good for video games since like 2017, when Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Resident Evil 7, and Cuphead released. Some of the upcoming games this year feel like they're correcting a lot of mistakes or negative trends in the industry in a way that almost restores some faith in it for me. You'll see what I mean later. Consider this like a variety show where I'll go over games I have played in 2023, games I want to play in 2023, and some titles of 2022 I liked, and whatever else I could fit in here. That's about it, so let's get into why I think 2023 seems to be great so far. Like I said before, a lot of games released in January alone this year. I played a few, but first let me go over the ones I haven't really played, which I have a passing interest in. One Piece Odyssey released this month. From what I've seen, it looks fine. I didn't realize it was actually a turn-based RPG until after it released. Just because none of the trailers actually indicated this. I find it funny. It's like a Final Fantasy VII situation. For context, I'm a huge One Piece fan, and the only One Piece video game I played is the incredibly mid One Piece Pirate Warriors 4, so I'm not like that optimistic about it, but it still looks exciting. Fire Emblem Marriage released this month. It looks okay too if you're a fan of the gameplay. Maybe I shouldn't judge, haven't played it after all, but seeing live streams, the story looks god-awful. It's way too tropey, bland, and feels like what a Smash fan who hasn't played Fire Emblem thinks a Fire Emblem game is. Other than that, it looks like a good game. Persona 3 Portable got a remaster. It's apparently pretty flawed, for a variety of reasons. Dead Space looks cool too. I have a lot of problems with the original Dead Space. It's been a while since I played it, so I'll probably pick this up. Obviously, EA bringing back a series that was seen as dead is a great thing, and I hope Dead Space can actually get a sequel or something. Dead Space fans aren't that annoying, so they deserve to be happy or something. Overall, the releases weren't anything to get unreasonably hyped for, but the sheer volume of titles of some quality is pretty impressive. Now let's move on to the stuff I actually played so far.
Also, this is week later me for Spoken and Hi-Fi Rush Release 2. Okay, bye.
First one is the remaster of Persona 4 Golden, which I played on Nintendo Switch. I played the original on PS2 before, but never Golden, and I had a great time with it. Persona 4 is a classic, and I'm very glad I can play it again. Thing is, though, I want to talk about 2023, so I need to bring up what actually debuted in 2023, so... Well, the way Nintendo Switch button prompts look translate very well to Persona 4's aesthetic. Okay, in all seriousness, it feels great to play on Switch, and it works very well portably like nearly every JRPG does. It was a great start to this year. Framemaker is released in early access. Now, the biggest criticism I've seen with this game is that it's just not worth the $20. That is true. If you're broke, maybe buy a different game that's more worth it and come back to Framemakers when they add some more value. But hey, that's what the point of early access is. The game itself is great. I find a lot of platform fighters besides Smash end up feeling slippery and imprecise when they attempt fluid gameplay. But here it finds the perfect way to add that fluidness while not being slippery, and the core gameplay experience is very fun, even if the game is a little lacking otherwise. I haven't tried out Steam Workshop custom characters yet, but those look super fun too. Just let them cook, and I'm sure Framemakers will shine brighter than any other platform fighter classics in due time. One criticism I have with the game is the assists. A lot of indie games are represented with them. Among Us is in this game, and Pizza Tower, we'll get to later. I like them, but they do kind of feel lacking. It just takes a lot to actually send them out for not too much of a reward, so I wish there was a way to make them more frequent. That's a simple change that's probably going to get fixed in the future anyways, though. But I also wish there was some sort of way to see what assists do before you pick them. Maybe categorize them into projectile-based assists, attack and movement-based assists, or something like that, because they're kind of hard to use if you don't know how they work prior. And they're so infrequent that it's hard to actually get used to them. Again, minor complaint, and the game is great otherwise. Also, when I played this game, I completely forgot that some animations were unfinished, and I just thought it was a stylistic choice, so yeah, I'm done, I guess. Okay, pizza time. If you don't count a demo, Framemakers technically counts as the debut of Peppino, the protagonist of Pizza Tower. So, this guy is technically a fighting game character. But also, it would be weird to count early access if you don't count a demo. So anyways, you see this MS Paint dude. Yes, this is Pizza Tower. I legitimately believe this is a very strong contender for my favorite game of 2023 so far. Yeah, it'll probably be Tears of the Kingdom, but you know what? It's a contender. Pizza Tower takes heavy inspiration from Wario Land, specifically Wario Land 4, and the structure and levels are similar, with you moving through semi-open world levels, collecting treasure, and having to run back out of them at the end within a set time limit. Wario Land is a great series. I'm glad it's sort of being brought back by games like these, but Pizza Tower is fun in other ways too. I think the main one is due to how momentum-based it is. You run a lot quicker than you can in Wario Land, and the feeling of running through enemies and jumping through obstacles is great. You can even run up walls too, which adds to more depth of platforming and the whole rush of it all. Really, it's like Wario Land and Sonic put together, and it feels even more awesome than what that premise would sound like. Some segments do have puzzles and slower paced platforming too. This game is far from just mindless running through stages, and it all comes together to make it super fun to play. Now, as for that aesthetic, it's difficult to get used to at first, but look, this isn't actually MS Paint, and when you realize how much passion is actually put into each animation, it grows on you. One thing I find interesting about this game is that the animations and fast pace combine together to give it an odd sort of sense of anxiety when you play it. Maybe that's not the right word, but look at Peppino's frantic animations and facial expressions, and the way enemies literally scream at seeing you. It gives the game an indescribable feeling of franticness that really enhances it in my experience. And nowhere is this franticness better exemplified than with the pizza time segments, the equivalent of the hurry-up segments from Wario Land, where you have to run backwards through a level. In Wario Land 4, it feels like an afterthought, a small little thing to differentiate it a bit from other platformers. But here they're a highlight of the game. They're so fast and so stress-inducing, yet so satisfying. Play Pizza Tower, please. I'm sure you won't regret it. And the soundtrack goes way harder than it has to. Here, just listen to... games I played so far in 2023. Before we get to what specifically I'm hyped about in 2023, I want to acknowledge some missteps of the previous year, 2022, which of course still continue to affect us, because the year passing does not erase the effects of bad things, obviously. Like I said before, I am genuinely excited for 2023, but in terms of video games, 2022 was kind of a bad year. Not because very many games were of low quality, even though that is true, because we got more of a look at how more and more big companies really are. I know a lot of these topics have been discussed extensively in the past. This isn't going to be a definitive list of every bad video game company decision, but I'm looking at 2022 shitty game company moments, and if that means a few more pokes on a dead horse, so be it. And I know this seems a little random on a video about 2023, but again, these still continue to affect us. And if I don't acknowledge them in a video about how great 2023 is, I don't think it would be exactly honest. And plus, this isn't just how great 2023 is, it's how great 2023 is in terms of improving on past years. So maybe if I talk about how shitty past years are, it will help the point. Anyways, Nintendo released this piece of garbage, the expansion pack to Nintendo Switch Online, which dumps some poorly emulated Nintendo 64 games and Genesis games, only one of which was not already playable on Switch. Would have probably been cool to just make it Sega games in general. It keeps the wow, Nintendo and Sega did a thing together factor for 40-year-olds who haven't paid attention to the games industry since the 90s. The target audience for Nintendo Switch, apparently. Plus, they could have put a lot more cool titles than just Genesis. If they got some Dreamcast era games on here, it might even be worth the $50. Jesus, that's over half the price of the base subscription. It is really just not worth the price, simple as that. As for the N64 game collection, look, NES and SNES had some serious problems with drip feeding us important titles, and I'm sick and tired of it. It's worse on N64. And while some picks like Banjo and Kazooie and GoldenEye were genuinely a really pleasant surprise and great additions that weren't there from the beginning, I'm not waiting a stupid amount of time for Donkey Kong or something. And the fact that content continues to be released so slow, turning to emulation, simple as that. Emulation, piracy. Well, unless you want to add funds to your account via Nintendo Switch and buy DK64 on Wii U, that's an option. You have like a month to do it. Nintendo is prematurely shutting down the one current legal way to play their older games on HD consoles besides an awful Switch service. So buy anything you might want from those stores quickly, I guess. It's all I can say right now. They also re-released Earthbound and its prequel, Earthbound Beginnings, to Nintendo Switch services. It is incredibly obvious that they just did that to revive some interest in a waning service, and I think that's pretty sad, and Earthbound fans deserve better. Konami was Konami this year. I'm happy for Silent Hill at least, that got a remake, although I can very easily see it going wrong. New Getsu Fumaden was a shock, Castlevania Advanced Collection was good, and they did NFTs. Remember NFTs? I'm so sick of them. Destroy your planet with the stupid monkeys. I don't care anymore. Anyone who supports them, or any company who even considers putting these pieces of shit out, is one to be wary of. Konami's just bad for doing them. Konami is bad for a lot of reasons, but NFTs are just the cherry on top this year. You know who else did NFTs? Square Enix. Maybe I'm ignorant about the industry, but by the start of the year, I had middling respect for Square Enix, which they consistently managed to destroy with every microtransaction-ridden messes, live service slop, and fucking NFTs. Let's all remember 2022 as the year Square Enix truly claimed their title as the EA of Japan. Alright, all that barely even scratches the surface of all the bad things done by video game companies this year. These are all probably not even the worst things that have been done. They're just what stick out to me. However, we're gonna just move on to some of the positives, because, well, last year kind of sucked. There was at least some quality in the titles, just like every year. What's that? Oh, I think it's time for the first annual Kirby and Hale's Jotaro Awards of Video Game Excellence. Hello and welcome to the first annual Kirby and Hale's Jotaro Awards of Video Game Excellence. Yeah. Today, we are going to be honoring... The best video games of 2022. No, you see, I played like 3 games that released in 2022. So this is going to be a really shitty award show, but you know what? It's going to be a stupid one too. With that said... Let's get into our first award, Best Animal in Video Games, which I would like to award to that one cat from Stray. Yes, this was basically set in stone from the beginning, but gaming did give us some other great animals this year. Rattata from God of War Ragnarok, and like all the new Pokemon this year. Even Sonic was considered, but I just have to go with this cat. I haven't played Stray. If you want to know, it does have some issues, but the cat 100% deserves this. It's adorable for one. It even has a meow button, the objectively best function a button can do. The way the cat moves and is animated is realistic while also giving you a good sense of control. Again, from what I heard. But even if it doesn't play all that good, the simple amount of personality and adorableness in this cat makes it basically get the Best Animal Award by default.
Now I have to do this award things next year, so there's actually some competition in this category. What's up? Best Sonic Game. The award goes to the best game in the Sonic franchise that released this year. I haven't played any of them. Frontiers looks decent, and Origins is dog shit. So Frontiers wins, I guess. In all seriousness, Sonic Frontiers is a game many people are mixed on, and I would love to try at some point to make a better judgment. But as of right now, I have respect for Frontiers. It does something unique with the series while also staying true to its roots, and I respect what it is. Will playing the game change that? Maybe. But I certainly respect it a lot more than Origins, that's for sure. I apologize for the significant lack of actually playing these stupid things, but you know what? I just had better things to do than play video games in 2022. Totally, not lying. And I'm not the one who decides these categories. Don't ask who it is, but it's not me. With that, we are officially halfway through our award ceremony. Or actually, we're 2/3 of the way through. Yeah, there are 3 awards for this ceremony. Finally, that brings us to the last award of the night, Game of the Year. The award for the first annual Kirby Inhales Jotaro Award of Video Game Excellence Game of the Year goes to The King of Fighters 15. So in case you all didn't know, in my first ever video about my favorite game each year I was alive, I mentioned this in passing as my game of the year. But I heavily criticized it, and I replied I hope a better game comes along. And yes, all of my instincts told me to give this award to God of War Ragnarok instead. A game I love, and it's probably better than KOF 15, but I'm still sticking with KOF. Both are wonderful, but have some significant problems in my opinion. God of War has issues with pacing and juggling a lot of character plot lines. It drags on a lot in some places. I don't want to get too in-depth with it though, because it's not my game of the year. KOF is.
King of Fighters 15 has a massive roster, with a lot of returning faces, some new guys, and they're all translated great, with tons of personality in their moves. Although, I do wish it did more to differentiate itself from other modern entries in the series.
It just seems samey, and this is a problem I have with a lot of fighting games. Kyo and Iori work together, but they have the same rivalry and dynamic they had in the 90s, and it is quite stale. Nothing is added onto them. Character gigs and dynamics haven't changed at all, and the central story of the game isn't much beyond, hey, everyone has to go fight Otoma Raga. A boring story in a KOF game is not a good sign, and I'm probably being harsh because most people don't care about things like that, but I do. Some new characters are good. I like that CYS is back. Dolores and Isla are incredible characters, and Shune is a fine new protagonist despite his blandness and high school drama class-ass wardrobe. I really like Team Sacred Treasures being official. King joining Team Art of Fighting was cool, so was Athena joining Team Superheroines. Fuck Psycho Soldiers. But overall, this roster is a bit of a mixed bag for me. That was a joke. I don't actually hate Psycho Soldiers. DLC was pretty bad too. You could have just done so much more unique stuff with the DLC teams. They genuinely added Team Awakened Orochi as DLC, The stages are decent and aesthetic is fine too. So what do we actually like about this game? Well, the gameplay of it is absolutely incredible. I love it so much. It feels refined to the point that this nearly feels like a definitive KOF game, despite all of its flaws. Super moves are super fun to pull off, and each character's moves fit them very well. They all have a ton of personality in things like endings, even if it's just still images. I do wish this game had an English dub, but that's not really the biggest deal. Terry still says, "Are you okay? Busta Wolf," so it's fine. Overall, it's just a super great and really fun to play fighting game. I was probably a little too harsh earlier, but oh well. Well, that was a depressing award show.
So why don't we get into what I'm excited for in 2023 already, huh? You know, like the main reason this video is a thing. This June is said to be the release of Street Fighter 6, the latest entry in one of my favorite series ever, and it looks so good. Basically everyone was disappointed by Street Fighter 5, and it very much looks like they're taking their criticisms to heart in this sequel. Nobody particularly liked 5's launch roster, which had some cool new characters, but was very small, and it felt like it lacked a lot of returning characters, and it didn't really seem to please those who wanted more characters, returning obscure characters, or the most iconic veterans, the World Warriors, if you will. And while it isn't perfect, 6's roster is big enough that a lot of really cool new characters are present, alongside almost all the characters of Street Fighter 2, which is really nice. The gameplay looks absolutely gorgeous, is very fluid, and the aesthetic feels reminiscent of the Street Fighter 3 series, which is super cool, because I did not expect Capcom would do something like that. We basically had a Capcom fighting game drought after Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, so just them making a new game at all is nice. The biggest thing I really like about this game from what I've seen so far is that it actually pushes the series forward. I know this might not seem like that big a deal, but this is the only mainline game in this series, besides the first Street Fighter and Street Fighter 3, where Shadaloo and M. Bison aren't present as the main antagonistic force. And I love that, because it means we don't have to go through the same motions that's been going on for like 10 years now. I think the stories of previous Street Fighters were fine, but they've gotten really stale when everything just involves M. Bison for the 5th time. And I'm gonna just say it, after the Alpha games, M. Bison hasn't even been a good antagonist at all. It looks like some other characters, like Ken for example, are gonna have some significant changes to their character, so I'm excited for that. I'm also just excited to see how old will play off the new. The game features a lot of new single-player content, and I don't really know if it'll end up being good or not, but I do respect fighting games that understand the value of single-player content. That's why the majority of people play them after all. I am excited to try out Street Fighter 6, just like I am excited for this game in general. Another game that promises to push a series I never thought would get pushed forward is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yes, Ubisoft is one of the worst video game companies out there for a variety of reasons that will basically always be true. But it does have some titles of quality, and I think the earlier Assassin's Creed games are on that list. Assassin's Creed 1 is okay, Assassin's Creed 2 and 4 are great, and Unity and Syndicate are pretty good too, even if they have a lot of issues. Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla are where the games get so much worse, as they forget what made the games great, and add bland RPG elements, boring combat, and don't really care that much about historical accuracy. Mirage simply doesn't do that. Ubisoft has promised that the game goes less into open world elements and is more linear, focusing on one main city and actual assassination missions. Could this game turn out bad? Absolutely, but that description alone is promising. And if this sells and reviews well, which it probably will, it's Assassin's Creed after all, we could see other games focus more on a good linear single-player experience, which would be great for the industry. This game is set in 9th century Baghdad, and while some people have accused the setting of being too similar to the first Assassin's Creed, that's really stupid. They're set 350 years apart in completely different places, with distinct cultures and history, and that criticism does not have any racist elements to it at all. Really though, this is a setting that hasn't been explored very much in video games, and heck, isn't even taught that much in history, despite how important it is. So I think it's a perfect location for an Assassin's Creed game. I really hope this is good, and the Assassin's Creed series will get better in the future because of it. I know the upcoming AC Red will probably be an open world RPG, but there's also Hex coming out about the same time, which probably won't be, so we'll have to see. A new Theta Rhythm Final Fantasy game is coming out soon. It'll probably be out or releasing by the time this video gets made. I'll probably skip it and buy it later, but I do think I'll get it eventually. I appreciate how the title is Theta Rhythm Final Bar Line and not Theta Rhythm Final Fantasy Final Bar Line. Anything that makes Square Enix titles less complicated is welcome. Chrono Trigger and Xenogears songs will be available, which sounds amazing to me, and will probably be the reason I buy this game. Yakuza fans, myself included, are eating well this year with the Ishin remake and the upcoming Like a Dragon Gaiden. I'm mixed on how the story is keeping Kiryu as a protagonist in Gaiden. I think Yakuza 6 was a perfect opportunity to retire him, but if they don't want to do it, Whatever. I hope they can put him in more interesting situations and still let Ichiban shine in the more newer games. Resident Evil 4 remake is coming out. A lot of people naturally don't like that they're remaking one of the most polished games ever, and I agree, but I don't think it's that bad, because I really like the style of game Resident Evil 7 is, and I think it might be cool to see Resident Evil 4 get it, even if Resident Evil 2 remake was mid in my opinion. System Shock is getting a remake, which is cool, and Nintendo Switch is about to get the Game of the Year as their Switch exclusive. Fist of the North Star Fitness Boxing. Some other really unexpected games are releasing this year. A new Amnesia, Freedom Planet 2, Flashback 2, Pikmin 4, Stalker 2, Super Bomberman R2, Tesla Grad 2, a goddamn Killer Clowns from Outer Space video game, Among Us 2 Wolf Edition. If you had asked me 2 years ago what I would predict for 2023, I would not have said a single one of those. Not in a million years would I expect those things to get sequels, and they're all happening now. Those are all the things we know are releasing in 2023. It's still February, so we have no way of knowing if there'll be more, and I think that is pretty exciting. And then there's The Legend of Zelda, The Tears of the Kingdom. And I'm not actually that hyped for it, simply because I don't like to be hyped for games we haven't seen that many trailers for, but still, I practically know this is going to be good, because it's a mainline Zelda, and it's made by Nintendo. I do have confidence they'll be able to make it a good game. Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time, and I would love to be able to have a similar experience again, even if it's not as good. I'm sure it'll be fun just to go back to the world. I hope this game gets to add a lot of new content and story, given it reuses assets, and fixes a lot of the issues with Breath of the Wild, like enemy variety in the story. Like I said before, I'm not really on the hype train yet, but I do think Tears could end up being a very good title, and make me have tears of joy. And I live in Canada, so that's technically a kingdom. So in the end, 2023 promises us with a lot of releases. A stupid, ridiculous amount of stuff to play, and a lot of it looks very fun and unique. But 2023 offers us something more than just a lot of content. It offers us a whole new direction to the gaming industry. A better direction with better experiences that can actually push the industry forward. This year feels like it could be the best one of the decade so far. Not only because of the content, but because of what the content represents. And how the video game industry might just be changed for the better this year. Let's all hope that happens together, and thanks for watching. I'll see you later.